The Brazilian scientist argued that at the time of the eruption of various volcanoes, the ice sheet on Earth melted and flowed into the oceans so that its breadth increased. The water and mud from the volcanic ash burdens the oceans and their bottoms, causing tremendous pressure on the Earth's crust on the ocean floor, especially on the coasts of continents. This pressure resulted in an earthquake. This earthquake was strengthened again by mountains that erupted later in succession and caused a terrible tsunami wave. Santos, citing the theory of geologists, named it the Heinrich events, catastrophic disasters that have a global impact. Priyatna said. However, there are some present circumstances between which Plato and Santos agree. Namely, first, that the location of the submerged continent was Atlantis, and by Santos it was confirmed as the territory of the Republic of Indonesia. Second, the number or length of the volcanic chain in Indonesia. Among them are Karen Sea, Talong, Krakatoa, Malabar, Galunggung, Pangrango, Merapi, Merbabu, Semeru, Bromo, Agung, Rinjani. A part of the mountain has been or is being active again. Single quote. Third, about the mudflow due to volcanic eruptions whose ash is mixed with seawater into mud. This silt in the sea then seeps into the land on land. According to Priyatna, that Indonesia is a region considered the heir of Atlantis, of course it should make us grateful. Makes us not inferior in international relations, because Atlantis at its time was the center of world civilization. However, as a disaster-prone area, as has been experienced by Atlantis, it is time for us to learn from history and take advantage of the latest developments in science to be able to overcome them. Some archaeologists from the United States, US, even believe that the continent of Atlantis was once a large island called Sunda Land, an area that is now occupied by Sumatra, Java and Kalimantan. About 11,600 years ago, the continent sank in a massive flood following the end of the Ice Age. The U.S. researchers stated that Atlantis is Indonesia, said the chairman of the Indonesian Institute of Sciences LIPI, Professor Umar Anggara Jenny, Friday, 17/6, on the sidelines of the planned International Symposium on the Dispersal of Austronesian and the Ethnogenesis of the People in Indonesia Archipelago, the 28th to the 30th of June 2005. Umar said, in the last 2 decades, there have been many important findings regarding the spread and origin of humans. One of these important findings is the hypothesis of an enormous island in the South China Sea that sank after the Ice Age. According to Umar, one of the most important islands left from the continent of Atlantis, if this is true, is Natuna Island, Riau. Based on biomolecular studies, the native Natuna are known to have genes that are similar to the oldest Austronesian people. Austronesian people are believed to have a high level of culture, such as the image of the Atlanteans mentioned in the myth of Plato. When the Ice Age ended, which marked the sinking of the continent of Atlantis, the Austronesian people spread to various directions. They then created cultural and linguistic diversity in the local communities whom they visited in a very fast time, namely 3,500 to 5,000 years ago. Today the Austronesian family occupies half of the Earth's surface. What is clear, said Harry, is that it is true that there was a large land area which was known as Sunda Land. The land area is roughly twice that of India. Right, the land is gone. And now only Sumatra, Java or Kalimantan, explained Harry. According to Umar Anggara Jenny, Austronesian as a language family is a major phenomenon in human history. This family is the most widely distributed, covering more than 1,200 languages spread from Madagascar in the west to Easter Island in the east. The language is now spoken by more than 300 million people. One theory, according to Harry Truman, is that Austronesian speakers came from the Sundanese land which sank at the end of the Ice Age. The population that was developed, Proto-Austronesian, spread to mainland Asia to Mesopotamia, influenced the local population and developed civilization. Map of the distribution of humanity after the Toba supervolcano explosion. 75,000 years ago. What was revealed by Professor Dr. Umar Anggara Jenny and Harry Truman, regarding the distribution and influence of the Austronesian language and nation, was confirmed by Professor Dr. Abdul Hadi W.M., a prominent Indonesian humanist and writer. Plato's concept of the community leadership system and who has the right to lead the nation, is not based in the liberal formal procedural democracy system a la Western, American, democracy today. In simple terms, the concept of Platonic leadership is the king philosopher, or philosopher king. This concept Plato got from the story of the government system and state of Atlantis. According to Aristo Santo's research, these ancient Egyptian priests, clergy, inherited information about Atlantis from their ancestors who came from Hindustan, India, which is the second Atlantean civilization, from the first Atlantean civilization in the Sunda land, Lemuria, or Nusantara. Aristo Santos also found a lot of information that led to his conclusion from artifacts and historical sites in Egypt. Aristo Santos also found that the story of Atlantis is related to the story of the gods in Greek mythology and the Parakounian first humans, their families and the people of their descendants. This story is similar to the story of Zeus in Greek mythology and legend, as well as the story in the Hindu holy book Rig Veda, Puranas. All nations, of all times, believed in the existence of a primordial paradise where man originated and developed the first civilization ever. This story, real and true, is told in the Bible and in Hindu holy books such as the Rig Veda, the Puranas and many others. That this paradise lay towards the Orient, no one doubts, excepting some die-hard scientists who stolidly hold that the different civilizations developed independently from each other even in such unlikely, late places such as Europe, the Americas or the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. This, despite the very considerable contrary evidence that has developed from essentially all fields of the human sciences, particularly the anthropological ones. It is mainly on those that we base our arguments in favor of the reality of a pristine source of human civilization traditionally called Atlantis or Eden. Wrote Aristo Santos. In contrast to the case in India where the sects stand alone and it is difficult to get tensions between one sect and another, even there are many conflicts between sects. Symbols or symbols in religion are a means of binding people's beliefs to get closer to their hearts and feelings to their ideals. Ideals of religious life, also called Nyasa or Murti Puja. Number of religious deities in Bali. Names of deities. Indra and Prajapati, which are included in the deities of Asta Vasu, are 1. Anala or Agni, god of fire. 2. Dava or Prithivi, goddess of the earth. 3. Anila or Vayu, god of wind. 4. Prabhasa or Dayas, sky god. 5. Pratyusa or Surya, sun god. 6. Aha or Savitar, the god of space. 7. Candra or Soma, goddess of the moon. 8. Dhruva or Dhruva, god of the constellations of the planets. Dewa Surya is described as the supreme deity, the deity of all the gods. The sun is the source and support of life which gives bright light and joy, removes the darkness of the night from ignorance, imparts knowledge to every being and gives light to the planets in the universe. This is proof of the mantra that supports Lord Surya as the supreme deity. Udvayam Tamasaspari Jyotis Pasiyanta Uttaram, Devam Devatra Suryamaganma Jyotirutamam. Meaning, behold, soaring high in the sky, the bright light over the darkness has come. He is the sun god, the god of all the gods, his bright light is how beautiful. Bali is the earliest evidence of world civilization which is marked by the respect and worship of the sun as described above about the Atlantic civilization. Halley proves that the archipelago is the center of the Lemurian and Atlantic civilizations. Pay attention to the detail and perfection of the rituals to the sun which still looks complete and still well preserved. It seems that no culture is still as complete as in Bali or its particular archipelago, which leads to reverence for the sun. Solar is not a ball of the sun, but the supreme god, the god of all the gods. According to Mr. Made Titub, in fact all the deities mentioned in the Veda are names or other forms of Surya, the supreme deity. Basically, it is the sun that emits its own light, and Dui is the feminine aspect of the gods. Dui basically means dawn in the morning, Savitar. More details Hyang Surya Raditya. Besides Dewa Surya with various aspects, other gods who are predominantly worshipped are Agni, god of fire, Indra, god of rain, king of the gods of heaven, Vayu, god of wind, as well as goddesses who are often worshipped or mentioned in mantras, including Saraswati, Savitri, Aditi, Suryaputri and others. These deities are generally described as anthropomorphic, human-like, with various advantages and disadvantages, superhuman, complete with weapons and vehicles. This is the result of the absence of change in the Puranic era. When the deity was composed, the deity was no longer worshipped, its function and role were replaced by the three main deities known as Tri-Murti. Lord Agni changed to Lord Brahma, Lord Indra and Varuna identified with Lord Vishnu, which is another name for Surya. Dewa Surya himself was identified with Shiva of the three gods with Parivara Devata, family of gods, magic and his retinue received serious adoration. Adipun the god. Lord Brahma with his magic Saraswati, Lord Vishnu with his magic Shri and Lakshmi. Lord Shiva with his practice Parvati, who later became Durga and Kali, became the forerunner of tantric teachings. Bhattara, Devanagari. Bhattara is a messenger of Brahman, God, as the protector of mankind in the Hindu tradition. Bhattara does not fully mean God because there are different definitions between Bhattara with gods. However, in its development, the term Bhattara is identified with Dewa. Bhattara who is female is called Bhattari. In Bali the gods and goddesses are also often referred to as Bhattara and Bhattari. The term Dewa, which means light, is less familiar in the hearts of the Balinese people. Unlike the case with Bhattara. Bhattara and Bhattari are saguna, scalar, visible figures, in the form of a god or goddess incarnating into the world in human form. Bhattara is a symbol of masculinity, male, symbol of strength. Bhattari is a symbol of feminism, kebetan, woman, a symbol of motherhood. The task of this incarnation is to protect humanity from destruction. In the Javanese tradition in general, and in the puppet tradition in particular, the term Bhattara is used to refer to a god. In the Dharma religion tradition in Bali, the term Bhattara is pronounced Bhatar, and is equated or even identified with God, because they both function as protectors. For example, Bhattara Vishnu, Bhattara Brahma, Bhattara Kala, and so on. In the Hindu philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, Dewa is a holy ray or a manifestation of Brahman, or God who is worshipped based on a specific function. In that case, the gods are different from Bhattara or Bhattara. Euricio Nunes dos Santos, 1937-2005, AD, was a highly qualified engineer with many patents to his credit. He is a professor of nuclear engineering at the Federal University of Minas Gerais in Brazil, and has also worked as a geologist and climatologist. He is also an amateur linguist who, among other things, has mastered Greek and Sanskrit. Santos has written various books on, among others, symbolism, alchemy, the Holy Grail, and comparative mythology and religion. His study led him to conclude that Atlantis and Eden in the Bible are the same, and even more controversial that they were in the Indian Ocean and South China Sea regions. Professor Santos claims that the correct location for Atlantis is in the Indian Ocean and South China Sea. Nothing but the islands in Indonesia. The Pleistocene is also called the Anthropozoic era or the Quaternary era or the Ice Age. During the Pleistocene and, more precisely, during glacial episodes that occurred at intervals of about 20,000 years, sea level at that time was about 100 to 150 meters below what it is today. Under these circumstances, the vast coastal plain, known as the continental shelf, about 200 kilometers wide, became exposed, forming landmasses connecting many islands and territories. Thus, we can see that it is exactly as confirmed by Plato in his discourse on Atlantis, which is contained in Critias. India was one of the closest colonies of Atlantis among others, and that the holy book known as the Vedas as well as Hinduism is derived from and in Atlantis. Many other religious ceremonies such as baptism, which are part of the 7 Christian sacraments, are memories of Atlantis perishing under the sea. Indian Ocean is the true ocean of Atlantis. The idea of a sacred mountain, such as the capital city of Atlantis, points to Atlantis as the source. Plato stated that Atlantis produced 2 harvests a year and had a tropical climate, which was suitable for the climate in Indonesia. It is known that agriculture began in the Far East 10,000 years ago, which attests to the amount of food required to maintain a civilization that was large enough and to create an army whose numbers match Plato's description. The Pillars of Hercules, the pillars in Europe, Strait of Gibraltar, were originally called Kalpa and Habila, and that the true original pillar was the Sunda Strait. Atlantis is in the middle of the sea, so there is a correlation in terms of the existence of continents. Java, Sumatra, and the Malay Peninsula lie between and separate the Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean. After comprehensive research, the authors reveal a new theory which hypothesizes that the lost island and city of Atlantis was located in the Java Sea. In the understanding of ancient Israel, it is explicit that the abundance of gold and precious stones representing the kings of ancient Egypt shows where they were born from. It also fits the Cush, who was identified later in Genesis as one of the ancestors of the Egyptians, so it is believed that the Gihon River was the Nile. However, if the rivers are Pison and Gihon, 2 of the 4 rivers that flowed out of the Garden of Eden, they do not correspond to the source of the headwaters of the Euphrates or Tigris, namely in Turkey. The watersheds of the Tigris, Euphrates, and Nile rivers are separated by hundreds of miles, and these rivers originate from completely different mountains. It is in Southeast Asia that humans, after emigrating from the semi-arid savanna of Africa, first discovered the ideal climatic conditions for life, and that's where they created agriculture and civilization. This melting ice flows into the sea, resulting in a sea level rise which is estimated to be around 100 to 150 meters, Dos Santos, in Atlantis, the lost continent finally found, 2005. After the Ice Age ended, there was a rise in sea levels which submerged a vast continental shelf in Southeast Asia forever, namely Sundaland, and caused the population spread that gave rise to the Neolithic cultures of China, India, Mesopotamia, Egypt and the Eastern Mediterranean, and created their first civilizations. The unique and universally same folklore that exists in almost every region of the Middle East and is an archetype of European mythology, including floods, can be found in the Indonesian archipelago and the Southwest Pacific.